So again, welcome to ICT204. As I said, that the assignment will have the same case, but there's various information that is changing in terms of the completion must be done under 3 months and the budget being below $1 million. As I said, you will need to be remaining in the same group, and we're going to be reviewing some assignments relating to some cases related to assignment 3 on Moodle. Now, I'm going to just share the screen with Moodle. Okay, perfect. All right, guys, so if I go and see under the week 8, there's a number of information that is actually published here. I want to start by showing you the information, particularly the example report from last semester, which is under the week 8 on Trello. So under the week 8 on Moodle. So if we go and look down here, you'll have this example from last semester. So let me just show you so that you guys will form a bit of a perspective about what you need to go and be doing for that assignment. And I also will go and show you a shell structure anyway very shortly to give you a bit of more insight about what you are expected to go and be doing in that assignment. The first obvious thing you need to do is you need to have a cover page that is available. You need to have a table of content. I like in the table of content the fact that it is numbered 1, 2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. Something that I really encourage you that when you're creating your table of content, you are having all of these main sections and subsections all the way throughout your work. You can see that they created here an introduction, standard. Maybe you could have created before that. You might have created before maybe an executive summary before the table of content. That would be something I encourage you to do. After that, they went to create the project charter or agile charter. What's a vision? What's a mission? And what is the success criteria for that particular project that we have in mind? For example, we must complete it with less than $1 million, the system can run properly. You put all of this information that you consider to be part of what is considered to be a successful project delivery. Now, the main thing is it needs to be delivered within time. It needs to be delivered within the cost. It needs to be delivered within the scope that the customer is requesting. And it needs to be delivering the quality requirements that we are expecting from that particular solution. So just some things to go and bear in mind, but you can form an overview about the vision and the mission, which we'll be discussing a bit later, and they will discuss in your lecture today. The product backlog, that's a very good thing. The product backlog is really a backlog that really indicate all of these various features that we are trying to go and deliver for the actual client. So if you go and look at your case, to be able to go and get the case, you need to go and be delivering all of these features that are related to that particular case. Now, the way that you do that is you need to write a user story. Now, this is an example, but that example doesn't show you that the user stories are being written in the format that they should be written. It should be written in a different manner. And I'll show you what I mean very, very shortly. But whenever you go and create a sort of user story that tries to explain to me the feature that the client would like me to go and deliver, we need to also go and have what is called as an acceptance criteria, which is a criteria that we follow, which when we go and ensure that things has been delivered, when we make the checklist or look at the checklist, we can verify from the checklist that any particular user story or any particular requirement has actually been fulfilled. Now, this seems at the moment as a bit abstract, and I understand that, but what I'll be doing is I'm going to show you a very specific example that is going to go and remove anything abstract and make it to be very, very clear in terms of how the work needs to go and really be done. So we'll discuss this. I'll show you some example, and I'll give you a chance to be able to go and explore that information yourself. You have things like a story. It's like, what is the number of the user story? It have a priority, because when you create a product backlog, you work on the user stories in terms of their priority. So which one is a high priority, which one is a low priority? You basically look at that information in relation to the top priority and the bottom priority. So that's something we'll look at a bit later. We need to go and also think about the story points. Story points talk about how complex is any particular task that I'm trying to go and deliver. The more complex, the more time a particular feature is going to go and take for us to be able to go and get it delivered. Now, a user story is usually a story about a user, about someone who is going to be using the system. And that's the first thing we need to really think about. We need to define who are our users that are supposed to go and be using our systems. And then you start writing the user stories accordingly by trying to explain the detailed information about that particular user. Sprint, what is a sprint? A sprint is a 2 to 6 weeks period during which someone will go and pick up some of these features and start working to go and get them delivered to the client. So what you go and create in the sprint is you go and create a number of sprints, and these sprints basically go and explain to us the sort of features or the sort of timelines for us to be able to go and deliver various features. So you can see here, sprint 1, there are a number of things that needs to go and be done. Sprint 2, other things need to be done. Sprint 3, sprint 4, and so on. And the way that they're trying to go and define these sprints, which is like short phases during which we go and get some project work to go and be delivered, the way that things go and work is you go and create various information. You create things such as sprint planning, sprint retrospective, sprint review. Now, what sprint planning is, it's a plan, it's a period during which I plan how I'm going to go and be delivering the work that is related to any particular sprint. So if I go and say during a period of 4 weeks, I would like to go and ensure I deliver a website which have a reporting function, then what's going to happen is you will create a plan, you will discuss how am I going to go and plan to deliver that reporting feature that is basically being requested by a client. So sprint planning is about planning the work that I would like to go and try to go and get delivered. Sprint review, which is not mentioned here, but it's very important. A sprint review is a period during which I will go and I will check with the client. I show the clients the work that I've done and I say, all right, have a look. I did that reporting functionalities that you've asked me for. Are you happy with it? Is there anything wrong with it? And I'll basically try to go and make the improvements accordingly based on that information that they go and give me. So I use that information to be able to go and get the job done. Sprint retrospective is where I spend the time and I say, all right, guys, I try to go and deliver a particular work. And we work as a group. We think we work very well. We want to go and sit down now and try to go and review and think, did we actually go and work well together? Or did we not work well together? We try to think, what did we do really, really well? What did we do really, really poorly? And what are the areas are we going to go and use to be able to go and improve the work that we would like to go and do? So we create a way for us to be able to go and get the improvements to the way we are operating as a group. So at the end of sprint 1, we'll make a sprint retrospective to learn, did we perform well or did we perform poorly? And how do we go and fix the problem? At the end of sprint 2, we do the same. Sprint 3, we do the same. We try to really find ways for us to be able to go and improve our work. Now, what you go and usually do in a sprint is you do items that are related to the functions that you need to go and do in a project. So I want you to focus on the functions. When you go and look at your case study and what you're trying to do in the case study, I want you to go and think, are there any particular features or particular information I am trying to go and deliver during any particular period of time? I want you to go and think about, how do we go and deliver any particular function that is related to my assessment case study? You see, they're doing the same thing for sprint 2, sprint 3, and sprint 4. because in every sprint, you need to have planning, review, retrospectives. You also have other stuff, such as you have a daily Scrum meeting during which we are evaluating our progress towards our objective on a daily basis. And that's something I will be discussing a bit later, but you will need to be every single day asking yourself, what have I done yesterday? What am I doing today? And what is actually stopping me from achieving my progress and achieving my goal? This is a comparison I told you about earlier. There need to be a comparison. You need to be comparing the traditional and the agile project management approaches. The way you do it, and the best way to do it, is not to make one paragraph, one reference, one paragraph, one reference. That's not the best way. The best way to do it is to create a comparison that compare both agile and traditional in one single paragraph, but at the same time, using multiple researches to really go and support your point. So I really encourage you to go and make good research to be able to go and make a comparison between what project management body of knowledge method is and what the agile project management approach is really all about. You're going to see how they're trying to make a table here, and eventually there's a group activity report. We need to know who is in the group. We need to also know, I would really recommend you make an extra column that talks about percentage contribution of each, because if there are people who did not really go and contribute equally to the work, then guess what? They are not actually eligible to be able to go and receive the same mark as the other people. So it's really important to go and try to look, what can I do in terms of contribution, and everyone must be contributing equally. You will need some sort of bullet points, something like this, where you are talking and you are highlighting what each person really did, and you can see how they're doing here the contribution, because someone is not going to go and get any marks at all. That's why we look at that information here. Instead of having a different table, why don't you basically link it to the same table and minimize the number of tables you are going to be needing? Conclusion recommendation are great. And then obviously there's a lot of research and a lot of references. And I always tell you, when you want to go and be doing your referencing, it is very important you go and follow the right format of referencing that is needed. So the right format is really published on the Moodle site. If you're not sure how do you reference it, then it's very simple. I tell you, make sure you're going to go to the Moodle site and make sure you are going to be looking at the sort of referencing. You can see on the side, introduction to Harvard referencing, useful expression. There's information, there's a full guide relating to referencing. So I really encourage you to make sure you are looking at all of these referencing and you are presenting all of this referencing accordingly. Any questions so far? Anybody, any questions? Alrighty. So what I want to do is I want to go back and spend a minute on this section up here. I told you we need to go and try to decide what are we doing in terms of work during various sprints, which is a period between 2 and 6 weeks usually, during which people are going to go and be producing a goal or producing work that needs to be completed, and we need to deliver a solution to the client. So what I want you to go and do is I want you to go and think about how do we go and decide on the product backlog features that I need to go and be working on across various sprints. So I want you to go and spend a minute, because this is a good sort of start, but I want you to go and think a bit further and trying to go and think about improving your work in a various manner. So what I want to do is I'm going to go and open another document. And I want to ask you a question. Okay. I want to say, I would like to develop a an e-commerce website like eBay? Who are the users of the system? So I would like to go and deliver a e-commerce website like eBay. And if I was to ask you guys, who uses that website, what would you tell me? Who is the user?
Us.
Okay, which is who? Who is us?
Customers.
Customers. So is a
Consumers.
customer a buyer?
Yes.
Who is the customer? A buyer or what? So a buyer is one customer.
Seller, seller
Who
as
else?
well.
Seller. Okay. So I want you to think about that question here exactly the same as your assignment. In your assignment, you've been given in the subject outline, you've been given a number of information relating to an assignment, and you've been told we would like to go and produce a system for Aldi. And they're telling you all of these modules they want you to go and deliver. So they're trying to tell you what they want to go and be doing using that system that we are delivering. If you would like to go and work on this system to be able to create what we call the product backlog, which talks about the requirements of that system, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify who are the users of the system. And once you identify who are the users of the system, then you are able to start creating something like a definition of what those users really mean. So if you go and see here, I've already done it. I said there is a buyer. Okay, so my user is a buyer. Okay, great. Let's define who is the buyer. The buyer, this is a person who uses the website to be able to buy items from the internet. So I know that I need to go and create a buyer, or I know I have a user called a buyer, and I know exactly what the buyer would like to do because I'm defining that user to try to understand who that person is. A seller, that is another user. Okay, great. What about the seller? The seller, this is a person who uses the website to sell items and generate an income. So we clearly understand before anything else, we clearly understand who are going to be the users for my system. That's the first thing I need to do before I create any user story. Before I start writing any of this, the first thing I need to do is I need to go and understand who is going to go and be using my system. The second thing I need to go and do is I need to be able to understand what would the user needs to go and do. So how do we do it? Well, the way we try to understand what the user is trying to do, we'll basically write what is known as a user story. Anybody knows how we write a user story? Anybody have written a user story before? Anybody could shed some light on
Dialogues
how?
and storyboarding.
What's that?
Using dialogues and storyboarding.
Okay, dialogues and storyboarding. Is there any, can you give me some example here? I'm going to give you a structure. As a user, I want to do something so that I can get something. Okay, so the most important things here is you need to know who is the user. You want to know what the user want to do, and you want to know what the user want to get. Okay, so if I go and look, I told you there's a buyer and there's a seller. If I want to try to understand what the seller want to do with that system, or how are they going to be using the e-commerce site, the first thing I will do is I will write as a, and my user, which is in yellow, instead of having a user, I'll put seller as a seller. Okay, great. What does the seller want to do? What does the seller want to do, guys?
To sell the product.
Okay, I want, okay, but to sell the products, okay, he wants to, you know, I want to sell products. Why? Why does the seller want to sell products?
To get the money
So
or
that I can generate a profit. So you can see I am discussing three things. I'm discussing who the user is. I'm discussing what the user wants to do. And I'm discussing what the user would like to go and actually get. And again, I link that the same to your assignment. So I want you to think about your assignment and think about who are the users of my system. And based on the work that I'm trying to go and do, how are my users going to be using that system? Does that make sense? Is that clear?
yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you need to go and define your users. You need to be able to then define a story, which is what are the users wanting to go and do and why do they want to do it? The third thing you need to think about is you need to think about why, how do we actually double check that this has been delivered? So if that is my user story, how do I confirm that the user can sell products and the user can generate a profit? You need to verify that this has been achieved to be able to go and ensure that tick, I managed to go and deliver to the client what they are actually requesting. I'm going to show you the example now about a particular one that I've done previously so that you guys will form your understanding. So if I go and bring that system up, you can see here, as a seller, I want to list an item so that I can earn money. Okay, how do we verify what's, how do we ensure that the client who requested that feature is going to accept that I have actually delivered to them what they are requested? Well, let's see. Seller is able to write a description about the product. Seller is able to upload the photos relating to the product. Seller mentioned the cost of the product. Seller mentioned the price of the product. Seller sells the product and the seller earned money. This is one way to say that for me to verify that that particular feature has been delivered, my acceptance criteria is I need to double check that every one of these items have actually already been delivered. Another student previously, they gave me a different acceptance criteria. They said, okay, that's how I do it. Said what? Said, seller sells the product on the priority of the buyer. Seller sells the product to the buyer through payment. Seller received the payment. They said, this is how I'm going to go and verify that my feature has been done. Well, if that's your criteria, so be it. This is a criteria you're going to go and verify that the work has been done as requested. So really, you need to create you need to understand who the users are. That's the first step, and define them. You need to create a user story. You need to make sure you have an acceptance criteria which prove that that particular feature or requirements, which is a user story written in the format of a user story, has actually been delivered, and we got the client exactly what they want. Another example, as a buyer, I want to be able to search change. Okay, I want to be able to change the search parameters so that I am able to find the products that matches my requirements. So we know exactly who is the user. We know, what they want to do. And we know why they want to go and do it. So 3 items we would like to go and achieve. Another example is if students are going to be using Moodle. As a student, the student is a user. I want to have a Moodle login because I know what you want. so that I can access my course material. So I know why you want to do it. How do we verify it? Well, the student attempts to create a login, the student attempt to log in on a website, the student access their course, the student press on the item they would like to go and download, and we verify that they were able to go and get the job done. So we need to create that sort of foundation to be able to go and create a good, well-written user stories that you will put in this sort of column, and you need to have good acceptance criteria. And this is where you pick up those user stories and you say, in sprint 1, I'm going to be doing nurse stories. In sprint 2, I'm going to be doing the other stories. In sprint 3, I'm going to be doing something else. You start giving all of that particular information.
Excuse me, sir.
Tell me.
How many story we need to develop?
My best response to that is I recommend you go here and you look here about what is being actually requested and how many features. I think it is very easy, or it is at least achievable for you to be doing between at least between 15 and 30 stories.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Anybody else have any question at all, guys, you would like me to answer? Okay, now, go on.
No, we're gonna explain what we need to deliver this week, yeah?
100%.
Julia? Okay.
100%.
Thank you.
To be honest with you, Juliana, I've already made sure that your team and every team have done the work last time I met to make it much more easier so that you guys will be able to submit the work straight away. But I'll double check that everybody has managed to go and do it. So now I would like to go and make sure you guys have set up Slack. So last time we met, I went to the system and we tried to go and ensure that you guys go to the website called slack.com. Okay. And what I asked you guys to do, I asked you to go and ensure you're going to go and register with Slack. And then after that, you can actually go and create a space where you guys are able to go and work with your group members. So if you created your space, you'll be able to go directly to a space like the one you see here in front of you now. And then what you can then do, you can create a channel, and that channel could be, let's say, COI Agile Group Assignment, and you can add all your friends to that channel. Now, what happens when you add all of these people to the channel is you'll be able to then start communication with all of those people. At Fadi Kutub, did you work on the Slack task 1? And then what will happen, you might be able to go and, I don't know, just send things, send attachments, and whatever. You know, you can send whatever you believe, send the link. You choose what sort of things you would like to go and be sending to be able to go and share with your team members. All of this communication you do in here is a communication that you can then take from Slack, and you'll be able to go and bring that communication to places like a Word document. So I'll be able to go and say, all right, let me double check. All right, this is, you give me that information assignment, you show me in your assignment the work you've actually done for that particular group. So last week, or last time we met, at least the majority of people in my class managed to go and create that Slack communication. I'm going to stop sharing now from my end. And I would like to make sure that each group from you will share with me your screen again to show me that you guys have Slack up and running and ready to go. So I'm going to start with group 1. Anyone here from group 1? Anyone here from group 1? Let me double check myself. Okay, Suman,
Yes, sir.
how are you, my friend? Could you please share with me your screen to show me what you guys have done for Slack, please? Thank you.
I'm using my mobile, just add on my laptop. Sorry, sir.
It doesn't matter. You should still be able to go and still share it. You can log in from your mobile phone. You can still share your screen.
Oh, it is this.
Yeah, or see if any of the groups are able to go and do that.
I think I'll just check on the group just a minute, sir.
No worries. Daddy, Manish? Is there anyone from group 2? Manish, Asta, Rupak, Samikshia? Manish Pudel? Anyone is able to go and share the screen? It seems like, I don't know if you guys are not at home or something, but is there anyone able to go and
Yes,
share the
I
screen with
can
us?
share.
That would be good. Please share it with us now.
Are you able to see?
Yes, I can. So
Yeah.
you created an agile group assignment section. Perfect.
Yeah.
And you've added every team member and everyone is there.
Mhm.
Perfect. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to
Mhm.
make sure you guys are communicating, relating to that group assignment here. Now, I remember, Juliana, you mentioned there's another system you also like to use.
Yeah,
Which one was
yeah.
that?
Discord. So we actually, I think it's easier because we can share our screen, we can upload files, we can, yeah.
Okay,
I think
well,
it's a bit easier, but we also have the Slack, but I think, I don't know
all right.
if we can.
Well, for now, we'll basically stick to Slack and all the communication in Slack. I will be showing you some examples a bit later on where you would actually go and submit your work and how you would submit it.
Okay, all right.
Alrighty,
Cool.
but it's good you guys have started adding everybody. Thank you very much. All right, you can stop sharing. Is there anybody else who would like to go and share their screen with us now?
So can you
Yes,
explain
sir.
again how to make this one?
Yeah. So you need to go. You haven't created anything because all the groups created it last time. So you need to click on launch Slack. You see in front of you, launch Slack. It's at the center.
So you mean we have to go to slack.com first?
Yeah, you have to go to slack.com. Are you sharing the screen or is there someone else sharing the screen?
That's not me.
Oh, that's not you. Okay, yes.
Oh,
So you
that's
have to go
from
to
group
Slack.
1, sir.
That's okay. Yeah, you can launch Slack now. But what you need to do, Yubraj, you need to go to slack.com. You need to go and register as a user. Every one of your group members needs to go and be registered as a user. And then you create a workspace like it's shown on the top right-hand corner. And to that workspace, you add every one of your team members and you start communicating with them.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so I'll show you anyway again in a minute. Do you want to click on launch Slack, my friend? The person who's sharing the screen now. All right, perfect. Close that. Appeal, all of the members are added. That's great. And you guys are starting to go and communicate. That's exactly what I need you to go and be doing from your end. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. I'm going to go and show it again from my end to ensure that everybody is clear on what I need them to go and do. So if you go and see here, once you go and create the login, and once you go and create you add every team member who created their group details. You can add them from up there in the section. You add any member you would like once they create an account. You don't rely on direct messages because that means you communicate to one person only. You basically come here, you create a channel, test channel, and what you are able to go and do, you are able to go and create it, and you are able to then add people to the channel. So for example, you might say, I want to add Fadi Kutub, I want to add FK08. You can add all of those people, and you guys will then be able to go and have a channel where you can actually go and communicate with each other. I want to communicate. You, Brush, does that make sense?
This
So
is
you need
just
to
for the
create-
communication, sir.
That's
Just
all
for
for the communication and sharing the information. All the communication related to the assignment must be done using that section.
And at the end, we have to like share our screenshots in the assignment as well.
Yeah, I'll show you how it's submitted. I'll show you, there are some pictures that I'll show you very shortly. All right. Already?
Yes, sir.
No worries. All right, guys. So I can see now that you all have went and you created Slack. You've set it up. The first working document, which is what you need to be submitting for us now, is due on Sunday. Just a screenshot confirming that you have set up the group in Slack and some example messages between group members. You need to have a cover sheet. You need to ensure you hand up your work on time. Now, I was a bit disappointed in the first assignment where I've seen many of you were not actually submitting your work on a regular basis and you are losing very, very easy marks. I do not want anyone to be losing any marks relating to the assignment. I want you all to be really submitting on a regular basis, getting the work done. So please, I don't want to apply penalties. I want you to get simply your work done on time. I will show you some examples very shortly of the submission. Your tasks are due like the following. On midnight, on Sunday midnight, 9th of January, we have a 1 mark, which is Slack, which the majority of you should have already done, and you guys should already be receiving easy mark for that. Then we need to go and set up Trello, which is really the board where you'll be putting all of these user stories that I was just explaining to you earlier. And I'll show you some board and I'll show you some discussion about that very shortly. And finally, I will go and submit a team report on the use of Agile and group work activity, which is really the whole report, which is due on the 30th of January towards the end of the session. We will give you more guidance every week. We recommend you stay in the same group to basically avoid having any problem in terms of trying to go and start to learn to go and work with any new members. Now, I want to go and talk about the various templates relating to the report. So ladies and gentlemen, I want you to review the table of content for the final report on Moodle. I'm going to go and review that table of content now. But what I did, I'll show you where it is, and I'll actually show you a bit of an adjustment I've done for that table to even make it even better. But the structure that is available, that is really available on Moodle, is really a shell template of table of content that is listed under week 8. Mine is a bit of an adjustment to that, sometimes if a bit more of an improvement to that, and that's something I recommend all of you guys to actually go and follow. So let me show you what I did in the template that I actually went and updated. It's very similar, but it has some extra information. So what is that in for? Well, first of all, you need to have the cover page for your assignment. That's obviously the standard structure. And I'm talking about the overall final assignment, not the in-progress assignment. This is a final assignment. Secondly, and most importantly, you need to hand in only from the group leader. I've noticed an issue in the first assignment where the group leader and non-group leaders were submitting work, which resulted in having a high similarity. This needs to go and be sorted. We can't have more than one person submitting the work. So please pay that into account when you're trying to go and be submitting your final work. I recommend you do an executive summary, which is not in the format that is published on Moodle. This is an improvement to the structure published on Moodle. There's obviously the table of content, introduction if the case, agile charter, which have the vision, why I'm doing the project, mission, what am I doing, and success criteria. How do we know that the project is actually successful? I want you to have a defined user section, such as I gave you a buyer and a seller examples earlier today when I was talking about building an e-commerce site. I want you to start thinking about how do you write user stories relating to those users. So as a student, as a administrator, as a teacher, you think about those important points. And yes, you can think about everything else like the priority, like the story point, like the acceptance criteria, and so on. I want you to then think about, what does a story point mean? Story point, for example, if we have feature 1, it's 1 story point, feature 2 is 2 story point, and feature 3 is 5 story point. What 5 story point means a feature that I have is much more harder for me to go and deliver, which means it requires much more time. A feature that is only 1 story, it means it's much more easier for me to go and deliver because it's a small feature that I'm trying to go and deliver. So when you talk about story point, it's talking about how complex is the work that I'm trying to do and how long it's going to go and be taking. You then think about, show how you have simulated across sprints. So when you talk about the sprints, you might think about the stages. So let's say sprint 1. You might think about sprint planning, sprint review, sprint retrospective. So you basically try to have all of this information relating to that sprints here. You basically create a main sprint as well as all of these various sub sprints, and we try to go and work accordingly. So you have all of this information relating to the sprints, and you explain what is happening in each sprint. What are you planning to happen in each sprint? Comparison of Pinbook and Agile. Obviously, we need to have a comparison of all of these approaches. Group activity report. You could put something like this: name of the person 1, name of the person 2, name of the person 3. Tell me how much they contributed each. And basically, you basically add all of this information together. Or you can do it another way. You can basically create it as a table like that, and you can talk about all of this contribution in the table. It's up to you, but I need to go and recommend the contribution. You need to have all of these Slack screenshots. You need to have all of these Trello screenshots. You need to have which is extra to what has been shown in the other structure on Moodle, because I'm explaining and ensuring every single thing that is needed is actually recorded here. Finally, there's a conclusion recommendation, and there's a table of preferences. So that is really the structure that I recommend you go and follow, which is basically somewhat a bit different to Moodle, especially in these sections that I'm highlighting in yellow. They are a bit different in terms of how the work is actually being done. This is again another section. This is again another section. So I'm highlighting some extra things you are able to go and do as part of your work. Any questions?
So for this coming Sunday, we just need to upload a Word file with the cover sheet, and then only the screenshot of the Slack, right? That's all.
For Sunday,
yes.
The only thing you need to do, there's here a file called Slack hands-in on Moodle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll open it and I'll show you that. For Sunday, the only thing I need from you is I need you to go and create. I need to see a cover page. And then after the cover page, I need to see that you created a channel. I don't need to see every step. I just simply need to see that you have created a channel and you started communicating with your group about your assignment. So the communication about your assignment and the table and the actual and the cover sheet at the beginning that shows me who the group leaders, who the group members are, and so on. So the cover sheet and the communication with your members. That's all what I need you to be submitting for me for this week.
Great, thank you.
All clear?
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, so I've already showed you that your priority focus must be on setting up Trello and on basically doing the screenshots for Slack before Sunday. So what is Trello? I've mentioned that previously. I'm going to go again and show you guys. Trello is this system, Trello.com. I would like you to go this week to Trello.com. I would like you to all go and create an account. And then after that, I would like you to create one of the boards, one Kanban board. And this board is where you're going to be writing all of these various user stories that are relating to your assignment. So you create a product backlog, which basically have all the features. The features are written in a certain manner. So you see here, you have Moodle access user story. Okay, what does that mean? Well, I am writing a user story in the right format. As a student, I want to have a Moodle login so that I can access my course materials. You provide all of those details in here. I'll show you another example here. You know, as an administrator, I want to have access an admin login to CMS so that I can manage the system users. What can you do there? You can add your acceptance criteria as a checklist. So you can have a checklist here. I named the checklist an acceptance criteria, and you have all of these points that in practice could be used to show that a user story has been fulfilled. How do we, in this example, show that as an administrator, I have a CMS login? How do I check? Well, admin can open the login website. That's the first thing to verify that the user story being delivered. Admin can enter username and login into the system. Admin can create new accounts based on different permissions. Admin can forward the new usernames to the relevant people. So you go and see how you create a checklist to verify that some particular thing has actually been delivered. So when you create a user story, you are actually able to create checklists to basically confirm that a task has been completed. You also would be able to create checklists about various tasks that needs to be done. I need to do testing, I need to do planning, or anything else that I need to go and do can be created on my Kanban board. But the basic thing is I need to create a Kanban board. After I go to Trello, I create a login to the Kanban board, then I can add all of my team members. I can add members to my account. I can invite people. I want to invite, let's say, Fadi Kutub. I can invite anybody and I can send them an invitation. And then once I invite them, they can come to this same place and I can actually, I can start assigning things to them. For example, if that's a user story, I can go and say, I want to go and assign this story to Fadi Kutub to work on. And I want to go and set this user story to make it priority number 2. Okay, so you can go and create all of this information about how important each feature is, because when you are working on various sprints, you are usually working on the things that are the most priority to the least priority.
And
Does that make sense?
yes, I've got a question.
Yeah.
That's for Kanban board. And then
Yeah.
if I decide to use Scrum, can I use
Well,
Scrum with Trello?
well, okay. Scrum. When you say using Scrum, this is really the board help you to go and use the Scrum because it's having all of these sprints.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have Scrum, you have the backlog, you have this sprint, which is really related to sprint number 1, which is really related to the Scrum approach. You create sprint number 2, you can create sprint number 3, and you can have the release at the end. So that is really representing to you the Scrum approach. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I thought we would need to choose to use Kanban or Scrum, like one of the
Correct,
two methodologies.
but okay, what I want you to understand about the Kanban and Scrum, they are very, very similar, but the only difference is the way you implement it is different. So what you see here in front of you is the Scrum method of application. If I was to go and create a new board, let me see, if I want to create a new board, name it test, actually, I don't want to invite that later. Okay, if I go and create, let's say, a new board, and if I want to basically simply use it to be something similar to the Kanban board, you wouldn't have a lot of these things. The main things you're going to be having, probably I'll delete that. The main things you'll be having is a to-do, doing, and done. So the Kanban board is really simply the way you would use the Kanban method. The Kanban method will only be using to-do, doing, and done. In contrast, if you are using something like the Scrum method, it's basically using something different because it's actually using the, go to the other approach. If you go and be using the other one, it's actually using more than simply to do, you know, to do in progress and done. It's actually using many more stages that represent how we go and do the Scrum method. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So if you look here, you might having something like to do, in progress, done. Okay, and that's basically working based on the Kanban. And the way that Kanban says, okay, I don't want to have more than, let's say, 4 user stories you work on at any point of time. And you basically, if there's anything more than 4, you don't actually, you don't get any more tasks. So if there's task 5, you can't start working on it because you have a maximum of, let's say, 4 tasks you're working on at any point of time. But that's not how we work it in terms of the Scrum method. The Scrum method is done differently. You have many more stages, you have many sprints, and you might be able to have more than 4 tasks or 3 tasks or whatever that you work on at any particular point of time. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
No worries. Any other questions? Okay, so I expect you to be working on creating the Trello system this week, although it's not due this week. Start creating a structure and start thinking about the stages that you would like to go and create as part of that structure. If you are using the approach of, let's say, Scrum, you will be thinking about some stages such as planning, designing, developing, testing, completing, and so on. So you could think about many more stages if you would like, or simply you might say sprint 1, and you will think about what are the items you will actually work on across each of the various sprints. Once you start having more information, we'll be able to be discussing further, but in practice, it's either you use a Kanban approach or you use the Scrum approach to delivery. Now, I went already and I showed you the Trello, so trello.com/home. If I was to go and really show you about Trello, the main features that you will see is what I've basically earlier mentioned. So you can create your board, you can create, let's say I want to create another stage, I can create another stage here. Let's say I want to name it sprint 3. Great, so now I have a sprint 3. Let's say I want to create a sprint 4. Now I have a sprint 4. Let's say I want to go and let's say under sprint 3, I want to go and create a user story. Let's say, user story, let's say 5, whatever. I want to go and edit that user story. I want to edit the information. So I might make it as a high priority and I might go and save it. Or I might go and actually say, go to this story and I might write it as a story. As a student, I want to have a Turnitin link so that I can submit my assessments. Because this is basically a feature we're trying to do, and we might have a checklist such as, user acceptance checklist. Okay, how do we do it? Well, we know the user can open Moodle, user can can find Turnitin link, user can submit assessment, user gets notification of submission. So you might create an acceptance criteria which to verify that that feature has been delivered, we might be able to go and create an acceptance criteria which is really relating to that particular assignment. So some things to go and bear in mind that you'll be able to go and create. Other features we can do, we can go and set priorities, we can assign a task to a member, you could go and put other labels, you can make a checklist, you can put due dates for various tasks, you can go and make attachments if you would like, you can go and put, I don't know, a cover image, whatever. It's up to you what sort of information you go and put, but there are many, many features. You can watch it, you can archive it because it's gone, you can share it with someone else so that they're going to go and do work. So many various tasks you can go and create by using that Trello system, whether using the Kanban approach or whether you are using the Scrum approach. All clear? Any questions, anybody? Alrighty, so you decide which method you want to use, whether you want to use Kanban or whether you're going to be using the Scrum method. We'll be discussing more about them, and there are many videos available on Moodle if you would like to see the differences between them. But as we start moving along, we'll start also showing you some of that information. So in terms of Trello, please go and set up the Trello. You can set it up on the website, you can set it up on the app. It's really up to you how you set it up. Now, if you don't know how to set it up, I suggest that you go and use your KOI email address to be able to set it up. But also I recommend you go and play the video, specifically this video here, how to use Trello step-by-step guide. I'm not going to go and play it because it's a video that takes 20 minutes. So I don't have the time to be able to do it in the class. There's still a lot we need to go and do. But also there's a Trello Plus add-in for Scrum, if you're basically using kind of the Scrum approach to it, which also you are able to go and play and you'll be able to see the information. So I suggest you play those videos to get more information, more guidance about how do we go and really set up Slack and set up Trello and try to use it in terms of the Scrum approach or in terms of the Kanban approach. So play the videos, have a look at them, and let me know if you guys have any questions. Now, Trello focus to do, that is the heart of Kanban. So what is the basic thing is about, we start with to do in the Kanban approach, and we end by basically ensuring that all the work has actually been done. So you don't have a repetitive sort of stages like you actually have in a Scrum approach. In a Scrum approach, you have similar to what I basically showed you here. In a Scrum approach, you have a Kanban board and you create a repetitive stages. So I might have, let's say, sprint to plan. Okay, I might have a, let's say sprint to design, sprint to develop, sprint to test, which is testing here, and sprint to complete. So you basically see that what is happening, if you want to go and compare these things, you'll be able to see that there's a repetition. We have planning, designing, developing, testing, completing. Planning, designing, testing, developing, completing. So what it does basically, it shows you that in a Scrum approach, you're basically repeating the same loop. And the reason why you repeat is because in every sprint, you'll be delivering certain features to the client. So let's say a sprint is between 2 weeks and 6 weeks. During this 2 to 6 weeks, we are actually working to develop a particular outcome to the client. So we're guiding a particular solution to go and actually be delivered. That's really what we are trying to go and do. In a Kanban, on the other hand, we're not. We're having these stages, but they're not really repeating. We don't have 2 to 4 weeks or 2 to 6 weeks where we get a solution, and then another 2 to 6 weeks, we get the solution, another 2 weeks. No, we don't do that. Here, you finish one, you add. You finish, you add. Okay, you finish, you add. So as soon as you finish more, you'll be able to go and continue working more. You finish more, you're working more. So it's really continuous, this one, rather than having a cycle of 2 to 6 weeks where after every cycle, you need to go and get some particular solution to be delivered. Any questions on that? Okay.
All our assignments are in Trello, sir. Like we have to do it in Trello.
All the assignment for this one is in Trello, correct?
All right.
Alrighty. So guys, think about whether you want to use a Kanban or the Scrum approach. It's really up to you. I won't impose any of them. Either way, the way you deliver them is different. You still write stories. You're still, trying to get a job done, but the approach you follow is different. In Scrum, it's more repetitive cycles. In Kanban, it is a more continuous cycle rather than something that is really repetitive. Trello Plus add-in for Scrum, that's the one that I told you about. You can play it during your own time. And if there's any question you have, we'll be very happy to answer them. Now, there's this video about Kanban versus Scrum. You asked me about Scrum and Kanban, so I'm going to play this for you now.
Hi, this is Gary. Welcome to Development That Pays. We've got a ton of stuff to get through today, so let's get straight at it. Scrum and Kanban are perhaps the best known of a whole range of agile software development methodologies. Let's break that down. Software development, in very broad terms, looks like this. The product owner decides what to build. The development team builds it. And customers use it, experience it, benefit from it in some way. What makes software development agile is that value is delivered to the customer in small increments. And importantly, feedback is gathered from the customers and fed back into the process. It's the product owner's job to take input from customers and from other stakeholders and to organize it into a prioritized list of features and user stories. This list is known as the product backlog. Now, what happens between the product backlog and the customer is what distinguishes Scrum from Kanban. As we'll see, each has its own routines and rituals, and it's this person's job to help the product owner and the development team to adopt and maintain good habits. In Scrum, the role is known as the Scrum Master. In Kanban, the role is known as the Agile Coach. Something that Scrum and Kanban have in common is that both are pull systems. Without getting into too much detail, the pull system ensures that work gets from product backlog to customer in the shortest possible time. The pull system also helps to uncover bottlenecks in the process, which helps to ensure that work gets from product backlog to the customer in the shortest possible time. As you'll see in a moment, Scrum and Kanban implement the pull system in two strikingly different ways. Scrum teams work in a series of sprints, most commonly 2 weeks in duration. Each sprint is preceded by a sprint planning meeting run by the Scrum Master and attended by the product owner and the development team. Together, they select high priority items from the product backlog that the development team believe it can commit to delivering in a single sprint. This is the pull I was talking about earlier. The selected items are known as the sprint backlog. For the next 2 weeks, the development team focuses on working through the items in the sprint backlog and only those items in the sprint backlog. In all but the most exceptional circumstances, any new requirements that crop up have to wait for the next sprint. It's common practice for Scrum teams to use a board to track the progress of work. It's called a Scrum board or an Agile board, or even, slightly confusingly, Kanban board. Each day during the sprint, there's a Scrum meeting. It's a stand-up meeting where the team takes a maximum of 15 minutes to discuss progress and to identify any blockers. At the end of the sprint, the work completed during the sprint is packaged for release. Any incomplete items are returned to the product backlog. The sprint ends with 2 rituals. The sprint review, which is a demonstration of new functionality to the stakeholders, and the sprint retrospective, which is an examination of what went well, what went badly, what could be improved. The aim of the retrospective is to ensure that the next sprint is more efficient and effective than the last. And that's Scrum. Kanban does a few things differently. There's no 2-week sprint. Kanban is a continuous process. And of course, there's no sprint backlog. The pull system in Kanban happens in a different way via work in progress limits. Each column on the Kanban board has a work in progress limit related to the team's capacity. For example, a team with 2 developers would set a limit between 2 and 4 items. The lower, the better. Let's see the pull system in action. When testing of a particular feature is complete, the corresponding ticket moves to the done column. The empty column is a signal to the previous column to send another ticket. That's the pull. Similarly, when the build column is almost empty, it's a signal to the dev team to select another high priority item from the backlog. That's the pull again. Kanban has a number of rituals in common with Scrum, although the naming is slightly different. Daily stand-up meetings, demos for stakeholders, and retrospectives. So now you know the difference between Scrum and Kanban. 2 important things to say at this point. First thing, neither Scrum nor Kanban are as prescriptive as I may have made them appear. High-performing teams discover what works for them and flex the system accordingly. Secondly, I've put together a cheat sheet for you that covers everything that we've talked about today, plus some additional notes that I think you will find useful. You can grab a copy from my blog via the link that you'll find somewhere around this video. If you like this video, please click to like, share it with your colleagues, and be sure to subscribe for a brand new episode. If you've
All right, guys. So this is really in relation to the Scrum and the Kanban in terms of the different. Totally up to you which approach you guys choose to follow. I'm not going to even impose that. It's really up to you. If you believe it's easier to use one or the other, you can actually go and do that, and that's fine with me. Any questions on that, what I've just showed you? I can actually hear you guys now, so you can speak to me.
No questions so far. Thank you.
No worries, that's fine. All right, so the only thing that is left for us to be able to go and be doing today is answering the various questions relating to Agile project management. I will go through all of these questions. All right, guys, so let's now resume with the remaining questions we would like to go and follow. The first question is, what are the 3 key elements of a useful project charter? I want you to think about the project vision, project mission, and project success criteria. The vision is, why am I actually doing something? So when you are creating that vision section of your project, same as I showed you in the earlier structure, it is really about really explaining why that particular project that you guys are doing for Aldi, why is that project really important and why is it really worth doing? The mission is about explaining what of the project. It states what will be done in the project to achieve the outcome they would like to go and really achieve. So it's really about what are we trying to go and do? What is really needed to be done to be able to help us to go and really achieve the outcome we would like to go and achieve? The success criteria is basically how can we as management goes and make a judgment and describe and confirm that what we have actually delivered is actually meeting our client's requirements. It's really about really doing that information to try to get that success. If you don't meet that success criteria, if management is not happy with any particular goals being delivered, you won't actually be considered to have achieved the success that is really expected. So you think here, for example, about the vision. Describe why the project exists. For example, for a healthcare organization, the project is there to improve the delivery of care services by harnessing the power of technology. It's explaining clearly why are we actually doing it. What are we doing? Well, we are trying to leverage best practices from similar organizations to guide our decision-making and to guide our implementation. Great. What is the success criteria? Well, to know that we've achieved the success we would like to be achieving, we need to have a reduction in medication errors. We need to have a reduction in waiting times, and we need to have an improvement in bed turnaround when the bed is actually unoccupied. So we need to basically create a way to assure and double check that what we have delivered has actually met the success we are trying to go and really deliver. How would you describe the project vision? There's a big checklist you could think about to be able to describe it. What is the name of the project or the product we are making? Who is that product for? When will it be done by? What will it actually do? What it will not actually do? What are the benefits the business will get from doing it? And what are the benefits the consumer is going to actually go and get by using that particular outcome? So it's really about really looking at what can we really go and do, to explain that particular vision into a lot of various details. What are the 4 steps of creating the product backlog? Now, I gave you some information earlier. I gave you some explanation, and I'm not sure they're going to be matching here, but what I would want you to go and think is, before we even go to that information, I would like you to think about who is going to be using my system. That is really the first step that I see is going to be basically important. If we don't know who is using our system, we won't be able to go and really get the outcome we would like to go and really get. So the first thing I want you to understand who is going to go and be using your system. Once that is done, then you could start defining the primary functionality, and you can start writing about that functionality in the form of all of these really user stories. So you start defining the functionality that I'm trying to go and really deliver. So how do we do it? Well, we produce a summary list of what is needed to produce a project vision. We think about each step of the customer journey, and we say to ourselves, all right, to be able to meet and deliver each step of the customer journey, what do I need to go and really do here? You think about every one of all of these steps in the journey, and you start thinking about every functionality that really relates to the journey. Then you look at all of these functionalities and you create a group of features. Once you go and look at the workflow, you create a group of features. It gather really together ideas about what's actually done within each step in the journey. When I add them all together, I can basically have a feature group of the work that is done. For example, if you go and say, I want a functionality of the client being able to go and log into the system. Yeah, okay, he can log in, but he can't do anything. What's the point of logging in? Okay, that might be one functionality, but I want him to log in. I want him to be able to open an account, and I want him to be able to transfer money. Together, these 3 features form a group that the client is able to go and get a particular outcome to go and really be delivered. So I want to group all of these features and work together to be able to get that functionality that is actually meaningful and getting the outcome the client would like to go and get. I want to prioritize all of these various features. You might have all of these 20, 30 features you want to do, but which one of these features is more important than the other? That is really what we need to go and bear in mind, because in terms of the priority, you start working on the features that have the highest potential priority. That is really what we need to go and be working on. Which one is the highest priority all the way to the lowest priority? Finally, you identify the first work to deliver and commence the work on the priority list by looking at what is the minimum viable product. when I say a minimum viable product, what it means I now have a product that is actually ready to go and be releasing to the client so that they are able to go and be using it. You might say, oh, if they can log in and they can, make a transfer and they can log out, yes, that's great. But that's not enough. We want them to also be able to see statements. We want them to also be able to go and apply for a credit card. When I have these three together, this is the minimum product I would like to go and release to the customer. So you combine them together and you say, as a minimum, that is the product I am going to go and be releasing to my client to ensure they are able to go and find some meaningful way of going and using my system. What are the fundamentals of Kanban? Well, Kanban starts all the way with something that needs to go and be done. At the heart of everything is there's something to do. There's work that needs to go and be completed. It's all about building an effective way of getting from A to Z and getting all the work to go and be completed. Kanban encourages team to begin with a build minimum viable product, and we basically start with what we can do now. If I can do this task, I'll get it done now. As I start working through things, I start basically finding what can I make better? How can I incrementally improve my process? How can I go and evolve my process in a way that I am able to go and get a lot of the benefits that I would like to go and really reach? I start working on how can I use all of my resources in a more productive manner to get that particular outcome. Now, there is a Kanban link and there's a section on YouTube called What is Kanban? I really suggest you go and look at these things a bit later. But in summary, there's some information. It's basically, if I was to tell you in a main 2 words, Kanban is really a board. It's a board that basically tries to signify to people what work needs to go and be completed. It's really a signboard, but I'm gonna go and just play this quick video for you, which I think I loaded it earlier. Let me see if I have it here somewhere. Yep, this one here. No, it's not this one. Right, let me play it here. No. Okay, stop that. Sorry, it's just not playing for you guys. It stopped playing. Share screen.
Kanban is a work management system designed to help you visualize your work, limit work in progress, and maximize efficiency, which we call flow. Kanban is the Japanese word for visual signal. With so many of us working in services and technology, oftentimes our work is invisible or intangible. Kanban helps you visualize your work so you can understand it better, show it to others, and keep everyone on the same page. Most teams realize this benefit by building a Kanban board, filling it with Kanban cards, and setting up a work in progress limit. I'm Max. I'm a product marketing manager on Jira Software, and I'm naturally kind of a chaotic person. I seem to always find myself in fast-paced environments. I've been on really dysfunctional teams, and in the past been in dysfunctional organizations. The number of times that I've seen Kanban kind of bring method to the madness to change the culture of the organization and just help me get work done has me basically shouting from the rooftops about Kanban. So I actually have a lot to say, and I've broken this conversation up into a series of videos all here on our YouTube channel. So the first thing that I would ask is that you subscribe to the channel so you can hear this whole conversation play out. I want to show you something. One of my favorite things about Kanban is that Kanban starts with what you do now. This is actually one of the Kanban principles. Another being that Kanban respects current roles and responsibilities exactly the way that they are today. You simply apply the Kanban methodology to how you currently work. Another Kanban principle is that Kanban encourages acts of leadership from all levels. It's on the team to work together to make Kanban work for you. Now, if those principles are something you can get excited about, then you might want to start by making a Kanban board. So this is what I wanted to show you. It's a Kanban board that I built to visualize all the concepts we're covering in this video series. I just finished talking about the Kanban principles. And it's important that I started on the right side of the board here. Kanban is a pull system, which means when you have bandwidth, you look to the left and pull cards from left to right. Since I have bandwidth now, I'm ready to start my discussion of Kanban boards. Kanban boards like this one can be built on walls, windows, whiteboards, or with a suite of digital tools like Trello and Jira. Their purpose is to categorize all the stages of work that a work item flows through from something you haven't started to something that's done. This is called a workflow. You'll notice that each stage in the workflow has its own column, and our workflow is super simple. Your workflow might be more complex, but I'd encourage you to start as simple as possible. You can always add more columns later. So for now, I'm done with this quick explanation of Kanban boards. I'm going to take this card from something I'm doing to something that's done. Since I have bandwidth again, I'm ready to move a card from today into doing. Let's kick off our discussion of Kanban cards. For the agile software developers among us, cards should be a familiar concept. You can think of them as one Kanban card per user story. For the rest of us, we can just back up. You can think of Kanban cards as being work items. One card per work item. You want to make cards for all the things you're working on and place them in the appropriate stage of the workflow. Kanban cards should have a title and a description and an owner. You can also add any other helpful information like a due date. Then your card should start to gain a little bit of a history as your team leaves updates on the card as it moves from one stage of the workflow to the other. Kanban cards should be small enough that your team can make progress on them in a reasonable amount of time. You don't want them so large that it'll take you weeks to move the card forward, and you don't want them so small that it's literally every task that you're working on. Can you imagine how chaotic your board would be if it was every task your team was working on? You want to avoid that. Once you build a board and you fill it with cards, you'll start to realize one of the key benefits of Kanban. You'll see columns that start to bunch up, revealing a bottleneck in your workflow. You'll also get a sense of what size cards your team can move forward in a timely manner. These efficiencies we like to call flow, and Kanban is built to help teams flow work better from the backlog to done. Once you understand flow, you can start to measure it. Kanban teams concern themselves with lead time, which is the time that it takes for a card to flow through your workflow from when you start working on it to when you're done. It's in the hands of the customer. And with that, I feel done with my conversations about lead time. And thanks to this board that I built, I actually know that I'm done. I have visual assurance that I've done all the things that I set out to do in this video. It's a good feeling.
So again, this is just some information relating to the Kanban in case you would like to go in.
You muted, sir.
Yeah, just 1 second, sorry. I'm not muted. You can't hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, sorry, I don't know. This the system is playing up. It's actually freezing. That's why it's been playing up a bit earlier. So, guys, what I was saying is there are a number of videos that you can play in top of that. I really recommend you go and play them and decide how you would like to go and make your approach. And you can come and ask me next week if there's any questions in relation to your method. I'll be able to guide you whether to use Scrum or Trello and have a look at your work by myself to be able to tell you whether you can make any improvements. So if you have something ready by next week, you can show me in a class and I'll be more than happy to go and guide you. discuss the fundamentals of Scrum, describe, the tube on Moodle. I'm not going to go and play those videos anymore, but what I said earlier is I mentioned the difference between Scrum by showing you the Kanban board a bit earlier. So if I was to go back and show you this, it is basically about thinking about it in terms of the further repetitive stages that you actually have, which is different than how you are doing things in the Kanban approach, which is really continuous work that is actually flowing. So in the Scrum approach, you're going to go and create your backlog. You're going to be able to go and have more than one stage. You're going to be able to go and have more than one sprint, but the tasks that are done across more than one sprint are actually repetitive, and all of which goes and actually lead to go and having a release that you can actually go and release to the customer, and they are able to go and really use. So the customer will be able to get outputs being produced on a regular basis, which will make them be happy and will make them be satisfied. You can play that link and you can get the further information. It basically, again, there's another video that talks about Scrum, which I'm not going to play now, but again, it's really talking about what I showed you now on the Scrum board. You start with a backlog, you start working on particular sprint backlog items, you pick them up, and then you start having that repetitive process all the way up until we're going to go and get something to go and be released to the customer. I told you earlier when I was showing you the assignment, I said about things like sprint planning. I spoke about things such as sprint review. I spoke about things such as sprint retrospective. These are particular steps and stages that you go and experience and do during a Scrum method of delivery. And there's a daily Scrum meeting, which is a daily meeting where people will go and stand up and say, what have we done right yesterday? What are we doing now? And what are we actually having as a blockages that we need to solve for us to be able to go and progress towards doing our work? How would you build a Kanban board, guys? It's very simple. You can build it via showed you. You can go and immediately go and create that board on Trello, and you can create all of these stages. It's not hard at all. If you go there, if you'll be able to go, it's as simple as really clicking, making a click, one click. Okay, you can add a stage, stage 1. Another click, stage 2. It's very, very simple. It's not hard at all. You can create it. You can add cards. It's very, very simple. You can do it on a system, but you don't need to do it on a system. You can simply do it on a pen and a paper. Something like this, you create a board, you get all of these big rolls of white sheets, and you start splitting all of these white sheets in terms of columns. So you can simply buy 2 rolls, 3 by 1. You can stick them on a big central wall in your organization. You can then try to load the strips together, and you basically then start splitting in terms of the columns. And on each column, you start picking up these 6 by 4 inch card, which is a sticky note. And on a sticky note, you'll be able to write the work that needs to go and be completed. It's as simple as that. Put a sticky note, and then once it's done, you basically move it to another stage. Once it's done, you move it to the complete stage, which is same as I showed you in the Kanban video earlier by Atlassian. It does not have to go and be very hard. It could be simply some papers on the wall, and you're splitting columns, and you get a sticky note. It could even be systematic by using something like Trello, and that will still show you exactly the same information, and even show you more, show you due dates, show you priorities, show you checklists. You can have all of that information very easily shown. Any questions about anything that I've done here for you guys today? Any questions, anybody? Okay.
No, sir.
Already marked the attendance.
I'll be marking attendance later after the class. Thank you very kindly all for your time and effort today. I look forward to seeing you in the remaining weeks. Please, if you come with some work ready to go in the future weeks, For example, if you can bring the Kanban board next week and show it to me, I can tell you what is great about it, and I can tell you what you can actually improve. But I can't do it unless you bring the work you started and you bring it along and you come and take the feedback. I'll be very happy to go and help you. If you even need to go and have a chat to me, you can give me a call. I've put the number again here on the chat box, so you can actually go and use it and give me a call if you guys need any assistance. Until then, thank you very much. Happy New Year again, and stay safe, everybody. Thank you very much for your work.